The first time I realized my parents were lying to me, it wasn't because of a strange phone call or a hidden letter, or even the way they avoided my eyes. It was because of a sound, a hollow sound beneath the floorboards, a sound that was never supposed to exist. That day was soaked in rain, the kind of rain that makes the sky feel heavy and the world look dull. I came home early from college because my mother called me, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. "Please come home," she said. "Your father isn't feeling well." At the time, I believed her. I thought it was another health scare, another moment of worry that would pass. My dad had been slowing down lately, quieter than usual, spending more time staring out the window as if something outside was calling him. But now I know that call wasn't about his health. It was about fear, because the secret they buried for years was about to be uncovered, and I was the one who found it. When I walked into the house, it didn't feel like home. The air was thick, not with warmth, but with tension. My mother stood in the kitchen, gripping the counter like she needed it to stay upright. My father sat at the dining table, staring into nothing, his hands folded tightly as if he was holding himself together. They both looked up too quickly when I entered. "Hey," I said slowly, "what's going on?" My mother forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nothing, sweetheart, just your father's tired." My dad didn't speak, he only nodded, but his eyes looked like a man already standing at the edge of something dangerous. That evening, my mom asked me to help her in the basement. "We need to find the old heater manual," she said. I hated the basement. It was unfinished, dim, and always cold, no matter the season. Still, I followed her down the creaking stairs. Halfway down, she paused for just a second. Her hand tightened around the railing. Then she kept walking. I didn't understand it then, but I replay that pause in my mind constantly now. That pause wasn't random. That pause was terror. We searched through piles of old junk, Christmas decorations, dusty furniture, photo albums. Then I saw it, a black box, clean, almost new. It didn't belong among the cobwebs and broken memories. "What's that?" I asked. My mother froze. "That?" she said too quickly. "Nothing, just old papers." I stepped closer. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. "Don't," she whispered. My stomach tightened. "Mom, why?" Her eyes flickered, and for the first time in my life, I saw guilt in her face. Real guilt, the kind that doesn't belong to harmless secrets. I pulled my arm away and opened the box. Inside were documents, yellowed with age, stamped and official. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the name, my name, but not the one I knew, not the name my parents gave me, a different name. My breath caught. "What is this?" I whispered. My mother's lips trembled. "Put it back." "No," I snapped. "Tell me what this is." I grabbed another paper, then another. Then I saw it, a birth certificate, but it didn't list my mother as my mother. It listed someone else, a woman named Elena Marquez. My heart began pounding so loudly I thought the basement could hear it. "Who is Elena Marquez?" I demanded. My mother's face went pale. Behind me, a voice spoke, low and broken. "Your real mother." I turned sharply. My father stood at the bottom of the stairs. His eyes were wet, his shoulders sagging like he was carrying years of weight. "What?" I whispered. "We never wanted you to find out like this." My mind spun. This is a joke. This has to be fake. My mother began crying. "It isn't fake." I stepped back, shaking. "You're telling me I'm not your child?" My dad's voice cracked. "You are our child, just not by blood." I stared at him, my chest burning. "Where is she?" I asked. "Where is Elena?" Silence. A silence so sharp it felt like a blade. My father looked away, and that was when I knew this wasn't just adoption, this wasn't some innocent family secret. This was something darker, something buried. My voice rose. "Where is she?" My mother sobbed. "She's gone." I froze. Gone? My father swallowed hard. It didn't just leave. The world tilted. My throat tightened. "What did you do?" I whispered. His hands trembled. "We didn't mean for it to happen." I could barely breathe. "What happened?" He looked at me, and then he said the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. "She died the night you were born." My ears rang. My mother collapsed onto an old box, crying into her hands. My father stood like a man waiting for punishment. But my eyes returned to the papers. At the very bottom of the box was one more document, folded thicker than the rest. I reached for it slowly, my fingers trembling. My father's voice turned sharp for the first time. "Don't." I ignored him. I unfolded the paper, and there it was. A police report. Case file. The name Elena Marquez printed across the top. Cause of death, unexplained. Status, unsolved. But what made my blood run cold was the final line written in bold. Primary suspects, Mr. and Mrs. Holloway. My parents. I lifted my head slowly, my whole body shaking. "You?" My voice broke. "You were suspects?" My mother cried harder. My father's face drained of color. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered. The basement felt smaller, the air heavier. I wasn't standing in my childhood home anymore. I was standing in the middle of a crime scene that had been buried for 20 years. And suddenly I understood a terrifying thing. My parents hadn't hidden a secret because they wanted to protect me. They hid it because they were protecting themselves. And the moment I found out the truth, my life was no longer safe. The night after I found the box, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain tap against the window like impatient fingers. Every sound in the house felt louder than it should have. The creak of the stairs, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint murmur of my parents whispering behind their closed bedroom door. They thought I couldn't hear them, but I heard everything. My mother's voice was broken. "We should have destroyed it." My father sounded like a man already defeated. It wouldn't have mattered. He was always going to find out. My stomach twisted. So they knew. They always knew this day would come. I turned onto my side, gripping the blanket so tightly my knuckles hurt. Elena Marquez, a name I had never heard before. A woman who was supposed to be my mother. A woman who died the night I was born. And my parents were suspects. I kept replaying the moment in the basement, my father's trembling hands, my mother's tears, the way his voice cracked when he said she didn't just leave. They weren't hiding adoption. They were hiding something far worse. And the worst part was the question that wouldn't leave my mind. If they didn't kill her, then why were they suspects? And if they did, then what did that make me? The child of a dead woman, raised by the people who may have caused it. The thought made my skin crawl. Around 3 a.m, I heard footsteps outside my door. I froze. The handle turned slowly. For a second, I thought my father would come in, but the door didn't open. Instead, the footsteps moved away. I sat up, breathing hard. They were watching me now. They knew I wasn't asleep. They knew I was thinking. And fear does strange things to people who have something to lose. The next morning, the house felt like a stranger. My mother made breakfast like nothing happened. Eggs, toast, coffee. Her hands shook as she placed the plate in front of me. "Eat something," she said softly. I stared at her. "How long were you going to keep lying?" Her face tightened. "We didn't lie. We protected you." "Protected me?" I laughed bitterly. "By hiding the fact that you were suspects in my real mother's death?" My father slammed his mug down so hard coffee spilled. "Lower your voice." I looked at him, my anger rising. "Why? Afraid the walls will hear?" His jaw clenched. "You don't understand what you're digging into." "Then explain," I demanded. "Tell me what happened that night." Silence. My mother's eyes filled with tears again. My father stared at the table like the wood might save him. Finally, he spoke. "Elena was young, alone. She came to us for help." "For help with what?" I asked. My mother whispered. "She was scared." "Of who?" My father's voice dropped. "Of the man who got her pregnant." My heart pounded. "You mean my father?" My mother flinched at the word. "Elena didn't want him to find you," she said. I swallowed hard. "Who was he?" My father's eyes darkened. "He wasn't a good man." "That's not an answer." My father stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "Enough. We told you what you needed to know." "No," I said, standing too. "You told me the bare minimum because you're hiding the rest." My mother reached out. "Please, don't do this." But it was too late. Something inside me had already snapped. I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the door. My father's voice followed me, sharp and warning. "If you go looking for this, you will regret it." I turned back, my hands shaking with rage. I already regret being born into this lie. Then I left. The air outside was cold and damp. The streets were slick from rain. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay in that house another second. I drove straight to the one place that might have answers, the town records office. It was an old brick building that smelled like dust and paper. A bored woman behind the counter looked up when I approached. "Can I help you?" I hesitated, then slid the birth certificate across the counter. "I need information about Elena Marquez." Her eyes flicked over the name. For the first time, her expression changed, just slightly. A pause, a flicker of recognition. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, sliding it back. "Those records aren't public." "Sealed?" I repeated. "By who?" She forced a polite smile. "I can't say." My voice rose. "She was my mother." The woman stiffened. "I'm sorry, that's all I can do." I stared at her, anger boiling. She wasn't refusing because of rules. She was refusing because she was afraid. Afraid of what was buried in those files. I left the office shaking. Whatever happened to Elena wasn't just an old tragedy. It was something people still didn't want uncovered. My phone buzzed as I stepped outside. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging." I froze. My fingers went numb. Another buzz. "You don't know what you're waking up." My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked around the street. People walked by, unaware. Cars passed. The world moved normally. But suddenly I felt exposed. Watched. I typed back with trembling hands. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who remembers Elena." My breath caught. I stared at the screen until another message appeared. "If you want the truth, go to the old church on Maple Street tonight. Come alone." My mouth dried. The old church had been abandoned for years. No services, no people. Just a rotting building at the edge of town. This could be a trap. It could be nothing. But it was the first real lead I'd had. I drove home carefully, checking my mirrors every few seconds. When I entered the house, my parents were waiting. My mother rushed toward me. "Where have you been?" I ignored her. My father's eyes narrowed. "You went to the records office." It wasn't a question. My blood ran cold. "How do you know that?" His jaw tightened. "Because I told you to stop." My voice shook with fury. "You can't control this anymore." My mother grabbed my arm. "Please, people will get hurt." I yanked away. "People already got hurt. Elena got hurt." My father's face twisted like he was in pain. "Did you think we wanted this? Did you think we wanted to raise you under a shadow? Then tell me the truth." He stepped closer, voice low. "The truth is bigger than you, bigger than us. There are people who—" A loud knock interrupted. All three of us froze. Another knock, heavy, demanding. My father's face drained of color. My mother whispered, "No." I walked toward the door. My father grabbed my shoulder. "Don't open it." The knocking came again, harder. My pulse thundered. I pulled the door open. A man stood there in a dark coat, rain dripping from his hair. His eyes were cold, unreadable. He held up a badge. "Detective Harris. We need to talk about Elena Marquez." My mother let out a strangled sob behind me. The detective's gaze locked onto mine. "You're her son, aren't you?" I couldn't speak. He leaned in slightly, voice lowering. "Your parents never told you the whole story." My father's voice came out like a growl. "Get off my property." Detective Harris didn't move. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph. He held it up between us. A picture of a young woman with dark hair and tired eyes. Elena. My throat tightened. The detective's voice was quiet but deadly. "She didn't die from an accident." He paused. "She was murdered." My mother collapsed to the floor. My father stood frozen, his face like stone. And I felt the world crack open beneath my feet. Because if Elena was murdered, then someone had been living with that truth for 20 years. And now that I knew, they weren't going to let me live much longer. Detective Harris didn't come inside right away. He stood in the doorway like he didn't trust the house any more than I did. Rainwater dripped from the edge of his coat, pooling on the welcome mat that suddenly felt like a joke. My father's voice was low, dangerous. "You have no right to show up here." Harris didn't blink. "I have every right. Elena Marquez's case was reopened last week." My mother was still on the floor, shaking, her hands pressed to her mouth to keep from making too much noise, as if noise itself could summon something worse. My throat was dry. "Reopened?" I whispered. Harris's eyes flicked to me. Someone filed a request, someone with authority. My father's face tightened. "Who?" The detective's mouth curved slightly, but there was no humor in it. "That's what I'm here to find out." My father stepped forward. "This is over. It's been over for 20 years. Harris's gaze sharpened. "Murders don't expire, Mr. Holloway." The word murder hit me again, heavier this time. Elena wasn't just gone. She wasn't just dead. She was murdered. And my parents had lived with that in silence while raising me like nothing happened. My voice shook. "Why are you telling me this now?" Harris paused, then reached into his coat again. He pulled out a folded file. "Because you're the missing piece." My father's hand shot out. "No." Harris ignored him and held the file toward me. "Elena wrote something before she died, something that was never supposed to disappear." I stared at the folder, my hands trembling as I took it. Inside was a photocopy of a handwritten letter. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. My eyes locked onto the first line. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it." My breath stopped. I kept reading. "I'm scared, not of giving birth, not of dying. I'm scared of him. He knows where I am. He knows I came to the Holloways. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." My fingers tightened around the paper. The next line made my stomach twist. "He promised he would take my baby one way or another." I looked up sharply. "Who is he?" Detective Harris's voice was quiet. "That's the question Elena never got to answer." My father's voice broke in, harsh. Enough. You don't need to drag him into this." Harris's eyes narrowed. "You dragged him into it the moment you lied for 20 years. My mother whimpered. "We didn't lie. We survived." The detective turned slightly toward her. "Then tell me what you survived." Silence. My father's hands clenched into fists. I looked at him. "Dad, tell me." His jaw trembled. "I can't." My anger flared. "You can't or you won't." Harris stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I think you should come with me, kid. Away from here, somewhere private." My father snapped. "He's not going anywhere." Harris's stare turned cold. "You don't get to decide that anymore." For a moment, I thought my father might actually swing at him. Then my mother whispered, broken, "Let him go." My father turned to her. "What?" Her eyes were red. "He deserves to know." My father looked like he'd been stabbed. He stared at me, something in his expression collapsing. Then he stepped back. I swallowed hard, grabbed my jacket, and followed Detective Harris into the rain. His car smelled like coffee and old leather. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. We drove in silence for several minutes. Finally, I spoke. "You think my parents killed her." Harris's hands tightened on the wheel. "I think your parents know more than they ever admitted." My voice cracked. "They raised me." "I know. And now you're telling me they might be monsters." Harris glanced at me. "People aren't monsters all the time. Sometimes they're just humans who make unforgivable choices." I stared out the window, rain blurring the streetlights. "Where are we going?" He hesitated. "To someone who remembers Elena better than anyone." The car turned down a narrow road on the edge of town. Trees loomed overhead like shadows watching. We stopped in front of a small house with peeling paint and a porch light that flickered. Harris cut the engine. "Stay close," he said. The door opened before we even knocked. An elderly woman stood there, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes sharp despite her age. When she saw me, her face went pale. "Oh, God." Harris spoke gently. "Mrs. Marquez?" My heart slammed. "Marquez? Elena?" The woman's trembling hand rose to her mouth. "You look like her," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" Tears filled her eyes. "I'm her mother." The world tilted. "My grandmother?" She nodded slowly, stepping forward like she was afraid I might vanish. "I prayed I would see you again before I died." My throat tightened. "They told me she was gone, that she died giving birth." Her face twisted with grief and fury. "She didn't die giving birth." Harris's voice was firm. "Tell him." Mrs. Marquez looked at me and her voice shook. "Elena gave birth safely. You were healthy. She held you." My breath caught. "She held me?" "Yes," she whispered. "And then they took you." My blood ran cold. "They took me?" Her eyes burned. "That night, men came, not doctors, not nurses, men in suits." I stared at her. "Men in suits?" She nodded slowly. "Elena screamed. She begged them not to touch you." My hands trembled. "Who were they?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He sent them." My stomach twisted. "The man she was afraid of?" Mrs. Marquez nodded slowly. "Elena never told me his name, but she told me what he was." She swallowed hard. "A powerful man, untouchable." Harris spoke quietly. "The case file mentions political connections." My pulse thundered. Politics, power, money. This wasn't some small-town tragedy. This was something bigger. Mrs. Marquez's tears spilled. "Elena tried to run. She came to the Holloways because they promised to hide her." I looked down. "My parents." Her expression hardened. "They did hide her for a while." My voice was barely audible. "What happened?" She stared at me, pain twisting her face. "They betrayed her." The word hit like a gunshot. I shook my head. "No." Harris's voice was grim. "Elena disappeared from the hospital that same night. No records of discharge, no funeral, no grave." My chest burned. "So where did she go?" Mrs. Marquez whispered. They made her vanish. I felt nauseous. They took me? Harris hesitated. I think they were threatened. My voice rose. Threatened by who? Mrs. Marquez's eyes locked on mine. The man who wanted you. Silence filled the room. Then she reached into a drawer and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. A necklace, a small silver pendant. Inside was a tiny photo. Elena, smiling weakly, holding a newborn baby. Me. Mrs. Marquez pressed it into my palm. She wanted you to have this someday. My fingers closed around it, my vision blurring. Harris's voice was low. There's more. I looked up. What? He pulled out another document. This arrived at the station 2 days ago. No return address. He unfolded it carefully. A single sentence typed on white paper. Stop digging or you'll end up like her. My blood turned to ice. Mrs. Marquez gasped. Harris's jaw clenched. They're watching. My voice shook. Who? Harris stared at me. The same people who took Elena. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I realized then that this wasn't just about the past. This was happening now. And suddenly, revenge wasn't just an idea. It was survival. I looked down at the pendant in my hand. Elena's face stared back at me. A woman I never knew. A life stolen. A truth buried. And I felt something inside me harden into something cold and sharp. I whispered, I'm going to find out who did this. Mrs. Marquez sobbed. Harris's voice was quiet. If you do, you'll make enemies you can't imagine. I lifted my head. I already have. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, and somewhere in the dark, someone was listening. The drive back from Mrs. Marquez's house felt like a funeral procession. Not for Elena, for the person I used to be. The boy who believed his parents were just parents. The boy who thought secrets were small things, like hidden birthday gifts or whispered arguments behind closed doors. That boy was gone. In his place was someone else, someone who couldn't stop hearing Elena's screams in his imagination, someone who couldn't stop seeing the typed warning in his mind, stop digging or you'll end up like her. Detective Harris kept checking his mirrors. They're close, he muttered. My hands were clenched in my lap. Who? He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, people who don't leave loose ends. The words sank into my bones. Loose ends. Elena had been one, and now, so was I. When we pulled up near my house, Harris didn't let me get out immediately. He turned toward me, his expression sharp. You listen to me. Do not do anything reckless. I laughed bitterly. My whole life has been reckless. I just didn't know it. His jaw tightened. This isn't a movie. Revenge doesn't end clean. I stared at him. It ends with truth. Harris hesitated, then reached into his glove compartment. He pulled out a thin folder. I wasn't supposed to show you this yet. My pulse quickened. What is it? He opened it slowly, like the paper itself was dangerous. Inside was a photograph, a man stepping out of a black car, tall, gray-haired, a suit that probably cost more than my entire life. He was smiling, surrounded by reporters. Harris's voice was low. This is the only name that keeps showing up in the shadows of Elena's case. I stared at the picture. Who is he? Harris swallowed. Senator Vincent Hale. The name hit like ice water. A senator, a powerful man, untouchable, the kind of person Elena would have been terrified of. My voice came out hollow. You're saying my father was a senator? Harris shook his head quickly. No, not your father. He tapped the photo. This man. My stomach twisted. But Elena never said his name. She didn't have to, Harris replied. Her hospital records were erased by people connected to him. The nurse on duty that night paid off. The doctor disappeared from town a month later. My breathing grew shallow. And my parents? Harris's eyes darkened. They were questioned. They denied everything. Then, suddenly, the case went cold. The files got sealed. I stared at the senator's smiling face. How does someone do that? Harris's voice was bitter. Power. My fingers trembled. So what now? Harris leaned closer. Now you walk away. I looked at him sharply. What? You walk away, he repeated, because Hale isn't just some rich criminal. He's protected. He has security, lawyers, people who clean messes. My jaw clenched. My mother was cleaned up. Harris flinched. I know. I leaned forward, my voice shaking with something darker than anger. She was murdered. Her life was erased, and everyone just moved on. Harris's eyes softened for a moment. Justice doesn't always win. Something inside me snapped. Then revenge will. Harris grabbed my arm. Listen to me. If you go after him, you won't survive. I stared at his hand on my sleeve. You reopened this case, didn't you? His expression tightened. I didn't. I froze. What? Harris's voice lowered. Someone else did. Someone with enough authority to force the department to look again. My heart pounded. Who? Harris hesitated. Then he said quietly, Hale himself. The world went still. My voice was barely a whisper. Why would he reopen the case? Harris's jaw clenched. Because someone leaked information. Someone sent an anonymous tip that Elena's child was alive. My blood ran cold. He knows about me. Harris nodded grimly. And if Hale knows you exist, then you're not just a loose end. I swallowed hard. I'm a threat. Harris didn't deny it. Rain began falling again. Soft at first, then heavier. I stared out at my house. Lights on, my parents inside, my entire life inside, and it all felt like a stage set built on top of a grave. I stepped out of the car. Harris called after me, "Be careful." I didn't respond. I walked inside. My mother was in the living room, her eyes swollen from crying. My father stood by the window like he was waiting for something inevitable. When he saw me, his face tightened. "You went to her," he said. It wasn't a question. I held up the pendant Mrs. Marquez gave me. My father's breath caught. My mother covered her mouth. "She wanted you to have this," I said quietly. My mother sobbed. My father's voice cracked. "We tried to protect you." I laughed softly, humorless. "You protected yourselves." My father stepped forward. "You don't understand. Hale." The name made my mother flinch violently. I stared at her. "You know him." Silence. My father closed his eyes. And that silence told me everything. My voice was sharp. "You knew who he was." My father whispered, "Yes." My chest burned. "You knew Elena was running from him." My father nodded. My hands shook. "And you still betrayed her." My mother cried out, "We didn't have a choice." I stepped closer. "You always have a choice." My father's voice rose desperately. "He would have killed all of us. He told us if we didn't hand the baby over, he'd make sure none of us lived to see morning." My stomach turned. "So you gave me to him?" My mother screamed, "No, we didn't." I froze. My voice dropped. "What?" My father's shoulders sagged. "We hid you. We lied. We told him the baby died." My breath caught. "You lied to a senator?" My father's laugh was broken. "We lied to a monster." My mother sobbed. "He believed us for a while." My blood ran cold. For a while? My father's eyes filled with terror. He never stopped looking. The room felt like it was closing in. "So what now?" I whispered. My father's voice was shaking. "Now that he knows, he'll come." As if summoned by his words, a sound cut through the house. A car door outside, then another. Heavy footsteps on the porch. My mother froze. My father went pale. Then came the knock. Slow, deliberate. Not police, not a neighbor. The kind of knock that didn't ask, it announced.
My heart slammed. My father whispered, "No." The knock came again. Then a voice through the door. Calm, powerful. "I know you're in there." My mother collapsed onto the couch, trembling. My father stared at the door like he was staring at death itself. And then the voice spoke again, quieter this time. "You can't hide my son forever." My blood turned to ice. My father's whisper was barely audible. "Hail." I stood frozen, pendant clenched in my fist. The truth was no longer buried. The past was no longer past. The monster Elena ran from had found me, and revenge was no longer a choice. It was the only thing left. The door handle began to turn.